order, right? YouTube's ready and all that. Okay, we'll call the October 10th meeting to order, regular meeting. Prior to this meeting, we had executive session on legal and personnel, and we didn't conclude personnel items, so we'll be continuing that briefly after our committee of the whole meeting. So please rise and join me for a moment for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. .03, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Any discussion, changes to the agenda?
Mr. President, was that Dr. Denny or Ms. Coleman?
Ms. Gabler had the motion. Okay, hearing no discussion, questions, et cetera on the agenda. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Agenda is passed. 3.01, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, discussion on the minutes as presented? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, minutes are approved. All right, President's report. So I want to take this time to, well, we have a recognition, and we need to make sure we do these more. So exemplary service during the time of our cyber attack. We have the technology department, Christine Walgemuth, Dave Kirkpatrick, Christine's our director of technology. Dave is the assistant director and network and site service administrator. Scott Esep leads the applications, database, and client services administration. Diana Dittmar, supervisor of data integrity, security, and accountability, and Claire Weber, attendance supervisor and data coordinator. So we all know about it, but I just want to read a little bit that's written here. So beginning on Sunday, August 27th, these individuals worked long and stressful days. We all know about it because we lived through it. Not to the same degree or type of living through it that they did, but they were there fighting. You know, you can't, when you get the whole image of somebody being on the front lines fighting the fire, that's the crew that was doing it. They worked, you know, considerable amount of hours. We all heard, we were inconvenienced, so to speak, by being out of school for 3 days. And I acknowledge, I'm not diminishing that it was an inconvenience, but these folks got it back up and running, hobbling first, and then were able to completely restore us to operations, and then completely restore everything. So that, I mean, the talent and the skills of these individuals were on full display. They were guided by our third-party vendors to perform all the perform off-site, hands-on responsibilities. So we did have some third-party individuals that helped guide us through, but all five of these folks, they had their I mean, you get the images of having it up to their elbows. They were there in a digital way. And so the board wants to, on behalf of the board and the community, we want to express our appreciation for the outstanding work and extend our many thanks to the individuals. So I was told I need to embarrass you by asking you to come down and so we can thank you.
That way they can get on camera too.
And we can get you on YouTube so it makes it official. Yeah. It makes it unofficially official.
Yeah.
So thank you. up there. Is Dinah up there hiding?
Oh, there you are.
Hey, y'all, look at, got to turn the camera around. So, it's a struggle to come out. Wait for her. And mission accomplished. I had personally had the privilege to come to. I did personally have the privilege of being able to participate as an observer in some of the stuff, and it was really incredible. I mean, they had it down. So it was. I can't express it simpler than that, but it was like it was a home run, and in very stressful circumstances. Hopefully, you'll never have to do that again. Knocking on wood. Okay, so thank you. All right, Dr. Redding.
And I'm going to piggyback on this cyber attack topic because the investigation has been completed by the third-party forensic team, and they were doing this whole project under a legally privileged investigation, and they were assisting us. But as we recognize that our folks on site were doing the hands-on work and pulling things together. The school district was successful in defending ourselves against the demands from the threat actors, but our investigation determined that certain personal data was taken before we discovered and contained the event. Our ability to restore temporary and then permanent access to our data files can primarily be credited to the team we just recognized, because they had prepared a detailed recovery plan, they had pre-attack technology defenses, and they had a solid data backup protocol. During all phases of the work, we were under the guidance of our legal counsel and the specialists who provided accurate and thorough information as best we could to inform the public. In a few days, hopefully yet this week, the group of individuals whose personal data was potentially accessed by the threat actors will receive a letter addressed specifically to them. School district employees from 2008 to the current year, and a very small group of students with individualized educational plans are those groups most likely affected. Contained in that letter will be instructions for credit monitoring and identity restoration services at no cost to the individuals. On behalf of the district, I would like to formally apologize for the disruption by this cyber attack. We will continue to work to further strengthen our existing cybersecurity and technology systems. I also want to extend my sincere appreciation to staff at all levels who worked to make the best out of a most demanding situation. And finally, thank the parents and the community for understanding and supporting us through this last 44 days of cyber attack. Thank you. I'll turn over to Mr. Norcroft.
Thank you, Dr. Redding. I had planned to make some comments about board members who were whose their current term and appointment were coming to an end. I had planned on making some comments later on at a future meeting. I'm not a social media person, as you've heard me say, but a post was shared with me previously here about a week and a half ago, and I realized I just couldn't wait to make my comments for those board members. So I reached out to Dr. Redding and asked him if he could help me with this a little bit and share his notes with me. If you remember 2 months ago in Dr. Redding's acting superintendent's report, he shared some very positive information from the climate survey with the board and with the community. So I still have a lot of heavy reading to do. It's one of those packets that as you read it once, and you need to reread it and read and keep rereading it, because every time you read it, you find something more and better that you learn from. So I still have a lot of heavy reading to do, but again, Dr. Redding shared some of his comments, and I'm going to add a couple of my own, but I am going to hold off on those positives to the end of my comment here today. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want to recognize these board members whose terms or your current appointments are coming to an end. It's easy and it's become acceptable to publish the negatives, whether that be the newspaper, right, the article that's above the fold in the newspaper, the cable news, social media, public comment, but we need to talk about the positives. And again, I'm going to do that here in a minute. But first I want to, because before I go over these positives, people that are responsible for, it takes a village. It's not just one person, it's not just one group, it's the entire group. So I started, there's four members sitting up here tonight whose terms or appointments are coming to an end. And in no particular order, it was amazing as I was writing my notes down, I realized 3 of these individuals all have one thing in common, and that is they stepped up when there was a vacancy to fill a need to help the community. So I'm starting with Mr. McGee. Carl, he came upon the board and after the conventional, normal election process just didn't quite work in that region. So we followed the protocol and we tried a second approach and there still was no candidates who came forward. So following protocol, we went with the third option, and from that, again, Carl stepped up, raised his hand. His educational background has just added more diversity to this board and all of our expertise and what we bring to the board. His education background from a faith-based, a different delivery platform, but still education. To me, he's offered a valuable perspective that was very helpful, I believe, to everyone. On a personal note, I appreciate Mr. McGee leading our private meditation and devotions time. That has been I really appreciate that. He is still a candidate. He is a candidate. He has large shoes to fill, and I'll talk about Dr. Short later in that seat. So, Carl, thank you for these positives, and looking forward and hopeful for the opportunity to continue and serve with you. Again, the first 3 have something in common. Mike Finucane. He served the community in this capacity as a school board director 3 times now. I've been privileged to be with him 2 of those times. So, I guess 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as the song goes. Mike, again, has stepped up, raised his hand when there was a vacancy open, and he went through the process and was selected and answered the call. And that has been so valuable to the district and the board, that with his experience from his previous time on the board, that we were able to bring a new member onto the board, and they were able to hit the ground with their feet running. Let me get my notes back in order here. He brings valuable years of experience when he stepped right in. One thing I really appreciate about Mike is his ability to evaluate, the scenario, articulate an overview, not just of his opinion, but that to overview of what the board has discussed. And this has been very helpful in our discussions and participation. Some obvious other benefits, your professional skills and abilities on our legal matters are great when we're in executive session. I really enjoy those. But most of all, Mike, your knowledge, demeanor, and professional and personal skills have just been invaluable as your service. So I thank you for that. Third one up is Mr. Bill Leonards. Bill has been on board for 6 years now. Again, first 4 years, and then the past 2 years, again, another citizen has stepped forward to fill an unexpected vacancy. In this instance, it was through tragic circumstances in the untimely passing of our friend Thomas Dolan. But again, Bill was able to come on the board, had the background, had the experience, step right in, hit the ground, feet running. Bill has served in board leadership roles during his first term. One thing I always have respected about Bill, he was very diligent in visiting schools, meeting the staff, talking to people. For those of you in the buildings, you were able to see Bill. I was kind of envious because he has time to do it, had time to do it, but all said, very respectable. His financial and budget experience been a great asset to the entire district, the staff, and the board. I don't know how many years with Department of Defense, budgeting and finance, but a lot of years. And that perspective has just been, again, invaluable to the board. So thank you, Bill. And certainly last but not least, Dr. Shore has served for 8 years, and I've been fortunate and to be able to serve beside Mark for all those 8 years. The last two, been privileged to be part of the board leadership team with Mark. And as I was thinking about this, I think in 2 years, you've only missed 2 meetings. But that's the most I could come up with. If I missed one, well, we won't count it. Pretty good. But Mark's ability to keep us focused on policies and try to lead by policies, keep the policies up to date, again, invaluable. The format that we have seen lately with the short board meetings, the Committee of the Whole, COW format, streamlining meetings, that was all Mark. Mark's the one that brought that forward, and hopefully we can continue that as a board because we have really streamlined our meetings. His skills and ability in the technology sector, especially after what we've just gone through the past 2 months here, again, another invaluable aspect. Another one that back in the days of the 2020, 2021, when the world was coming to the end with COVID, Mark, you were right on educational delivery. So I thank you for that. But most importantly, another trait that I admire about Mark's leadership and time on the board is consistency. He has always been consistent, and that is so tough to do. And I just thank Mark for that. So these board members, now I want to read some of these positives that have come out of the surveys. Now these are from the staff. All students are treated equally, regardless of whether their parents are rich or poor, 81%. This school encourages students to take challenging classes, 88%. This school communicates with parents in a timely and ongoing basis, 89%. Staff do a good job of helping parents to support their children's learning at home, 88%. Students are encouraged to get involved in extracurricular activities, 89%. Staff at this school feel responsible to help each other do their best, 85%. Some student highlights from grades 6 through 12. Teachers are available when I need to talk to them, 84%. There are lots of chances for students at this school to get involved in sports, clubs, and other activities, 90%. I have lots of chances to be part of class discussions or activities, 85%. I feel safe going to and from school, 82%. My teachers expect me to do my best all the time, 89%. These are from students. Next group of students, grades 3 through 5. Teachers and other staff in this school are fair to all students, 83%. I feel safe outside around the school, 85%. I feel safe in my classroom, 94%. From parents and guardians, my child's school is a supportive and inviting place for students, 87%. My child is safe at school, 83%. I feel welcome at this school, 86%. My child is getting a good education at this school, 87%. My child is treated fairly at school, 87%. My child likes her teachers, 92%. This school is a supportive and inviting place for parents, guardians, 80%. Adults at the school respect cultural diversity, 90%. Adults at the school have high expectations for all children, 83%. I would recommend my child's school to others, 82%. Yes, you can read that list and you can find negatives in there. And if maybe you want to be one of those negative people and you want to continue to publish the negatives, I prefer to talk about the positives, to expand on them, learn from the others, and be more proactive and practice what I preach. So with these positives, again, it takes a village. It takes all the members of the board, it takes the entire staff, all the facilities, and everyone to do this. So be careful what you read, especially for those individuals and groups who just love to publish the negatives. Thank you.
Okay. Good. All right, all good. Well, and thank you for the personal comments there. I always wish that I could do more, but I'm not at that stage of life where I'm able to, where I have as many free hours as others do, and I'm appreciative for those that are at that stage of life and they do those hours. It really helps everybody. Okay, so 5.01, this is a reminder that public comment is not a forum for personal attacks, antagonistic behavior, or harassment. Please be advised that you are accountable for any legal ramifications and liability that result from statements that misrepresent the truth, defame individuals, or disclose personal information that is not of public concern. And that statement will also hold true for for 12.01 on the agenda as well. I did not see from those that had signed in that there was anybody that wished to speak about agenda items. So just scanning the audience and make sure that that still holds true. Okay. So we'll move to 6.01. May I have a motion to approve the items on the consent? Let me first ask, excuse me, is there any items that's on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gagler. All right, all those in favor of approving the items listed in the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, consent agenda items are approved. 7.01, revision of policy 707. We have a motion to approve the revision of that policy, which is the use of school facilities on the second read.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second? Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Thank you. All right, any discussion on the policy, 707?
I have a couple comments that I'd like to make regarding this policy. I've really struggled with this policy. It's been a tough one. I recognize that the current policy is severely outdated and needs revised, so I really understand that. And I believe that youth sports should pay custodial fees, those costs that are associated with custodial fees. But the problem I keep going around and around in my mind on is what are the effects of these rental fees on students? Youth sports are listed in Category 2, which means there will be rental fees that were not charged in the past, and I believe we all know that. I believe that the youth sports of the district for the students is just so wonderful for their development with the positive qualities that it can bring out in our youth. Plus, the students who are involved in youth sports are not on their electronic devices, and that's a real positive because they have things that they're doing. Even though I have pushed for nominal fees on the fee schedule, I am worried about the consequences of those fees on the various programs. When I look at the unbelievable amount of time that volunteers in our community put into these programs, I believe we really need to partner with them and not put roadblocks in front of them. I've gone round and round on this for weeks, months, whatever, and I've come to the conclusion for myself that I believe that the youth sports should be moved to the Category 1, where they will pay for custodial help and other expenses incurred, but do not have rental fees attached to their bill. And like I said, I think we need to partner with these groups, and so I will be voting no to this policy because I really have come to the conclusion that I think that those youth sports should be put up into Category 1. Thank you.
You mean Category A?
Oh, excuse me, Category A. Thank you for catching that.
The font is really small here on my laptop. Is the youth sports, are the categories listed in the policy? There it is, okay. I had to scroll.
Oh, that's the policy has it been approved yet?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Other discussion on the policy?
I mentioned fairness and consistency earlier. Something that I really endeavor to do. I do come up short, as we probably all do sometimes on this. I have been consistent on this part of the policy ever since I believe the first time we discussed it, and it's similar to Dr. Diller's with the groups. Here about a week and a half ago, I had a conversation with a taxpayer and resident regarding the youth basketball program. I guess that's probably 6th and 7th grade at the middle school. Is that correct, Mr. Kimple, where they aren't, it's not a... Yeah. So it goes the whole way down to elementary age. Well, this youth, and I asked this individual, I said, well, and they said, it's only Chambersburg School District students. I didn't fact check that. I assumed it's correct. And I asked, I said, well, how do you do this? How do you buy uniforms? How do you go to pay for fees to go to these tournaments? I don't know if they stay overnight or if it's just, I said, that's a lot for parents. And they told me they have one big fundraiser. And their one big fundraiser is a tournament that's held at Chambersburg in our facilities. So these are students of Chambersburg School District whose fundraiser uses our facilities, but we're going to start charging them when they do a fundraiser because of what category they're in. So what is the difference between a high school fundraiser and a middle school fundraiser? What is the difference between category A and B? And the consistency part here, if we feel there needs to be a fee, then all groups in that same category should be charged the same fee. all right? Just because you're a high school student and you play in a tournament, well, that organization doesn't pay a fee. But if you're a middle school student and you have a fundraising tournament, well, that organization's paying a fee. It's been explained to me, and I don't understand it, that, well, it's because that group, it's all Chambersburg students. Well, it's my understanding, so is this middle school, elementary school basketball, that they're all Chambersburg students. The other part of the consistency, if it's about wear and tear on our facilities, then it doesn't matter which age you're in, whether you're a middle schooler playing on one of our fields or facilities, or whether you're a high schooler. It's the same, but we differentiate. And because of that, I cannot support the policy in my vote tonight.
Mr. Norcross, the example that you gave about the basketball, is that so that's an organization that's with Chambersburg students. Is it a organization that is kind of sponsored by the district?
It's my understanding it's not sponsored by the district. It's not a district-sponsored.
So that's where it would fall under,
Organization.
that's why it would fall under B as opposed to something that the district,
Correct.
that the district itself does sponsor.
And again, I did not get a chance to dive in and fact-check this. I mean, I don't know, Mr. Kimple, if I'm wrong on any of that, please step in here and help me. I would always appreciate that.
I believe most of what you said is probably spot on. I do believe there has been instances in the past where that particular did have students that maybe didn't attend the Chamber School. I can't say that happens every year, but I do believe that's
May I be heard on this?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I really am concerned that, as Dr. Diller was talking about, that we have nonprofit youth recreation organizations not in Category A. I think it's very important to put them in Category A and see how we make out. We can always change that in future times. And my reason for it is that our society is really having a problem of youth participation in sports and active physical activity, and we're having a problem getting parents who, and relatives and friends who will volunteer to coach all the aspects of these youth recreation. And I think we should put them in Category A so as not to give more reasons for people not to do it, for kids not to participate, so they don't have to charge participation fees or raise participation fees. It's just something I notice all the time. I mean, I'm so happy when I see 3 kids riding bikes because it's unusual. I'm so happy. I actually saw a couple kids roller skating a couple weeks ago. I mean, these are big moments in my life that I see a youth recreating. It's amazing. All the time I'm on blue sky days, 70 degrees, and we've got these parks with no kids out there. So these organized youth recreation things are getting kids out of the houses and exercising and having fun and laughing and being healthy. So I'm not going to vote to approve this policy unless the nonprofit youth recreation organizations, the 501c3s, are moved up to Category A. That's how strongly I feel about it.
Other comments?
I think my question is, I just want to understand what are the challenges that come with that from the administration's perspective if we move some of Category B up to Category A. What kind of challenges does that create for the administration and for the district?
you want to take it, Dr. Redding, first? and then-
I think the first piece would be to recognize that the school district then is taking on an additional responsibility, and all taxpayers then are supporting all youth sports programs in the district. And if that's the will of the board, that's great. It's a cost that you're going to need to budget for that's really not, to this point, been clearly identified as a mission of the school district to operate a youth recreational program. If that's what you're willing to do, then you need to make sure during budget time that you budget accordingly. Certainly, all that administration has wanted over the last umpteen months that this policy's been on the table for review is clear direction on what needs to be done. I will also state that just because we have a policy that allows our facilities to be used doesn't mean that every youth request will be honored. There are limitations in staff. There's limitations for the life of facilities, and there's a little bit of concern, well, not a little bit, there's a lot of concern about overuse of facilities. And just recognizing that that will be a consequence if the direction is given to open up. But we need to stress over and over that just because it's free doesn't mean you will get to use it all the time that you request.
Is,
That's the
a
way it
related
has to be.
question.
Of course, we can say no to people because it's overuse or we don't
Okay.
have staff to open things up.
But I think there's
and we should be
an
comfortable
overall,
saying
it's
that.
like there's no cost, why can't I have it?
Well, and then my question is how will that be prioritized? Because we have a number of nonprofit
Well,
youth, you know, how do we decide who to say yes to and who to say no to?
and I think it'll be how many, you know, there's, for example, there's 4 youth football organizations in the school district. So do you say, okay, each of you get 2 a season? I think there may need to be language in the policy to help guide that conversation. But again, I think it's just a matter of those in charge, because I've heard since July that we haven't enforced the policy for the last 10 years, and here we are trying to establish what that policy is, and that direction is still in question on what's the expectation. Whatever the policy is, the administrators are duty bound to enforce, and we will do that. We will do that.
Mr. Aver, any other questions? Who was?
I also agree that children need to be involved in these programs, if for no other reason than the increase in child obesity that is a major concern of mine. On the other hand, how many programs, and Sean, I don't know if you have any estimate of this or not, are not currently using our fields but might ask to use them? For instance, there's a lot of baseball teams that play at various parks, and are we opening up a can of worms by putting any nonprofit? Are we going to get a lot more than what we already have? I don't know that. Do you have any idea? Has that been thought about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been talked about, but again, we're not going to know till whatever policy is approved is in play. Over the years, let me back up just a second if you don't mind. I'm going to preface my comments with, it's been said to me recently that some of my input in this process has been looked at as disgusting. I take that personally, not that this is a personal setting, but I have done nothing in my entire life, 52 years, but champion sports and youth sports specifically. I spent 20 years as an elementary principal, or 20 years as an elementary teacher and principal, talking to kids from Ben Chambers, which is, you know, our type of like inner city school, kids that are very underprivileged, and talking to them about their future and playing sports and what it can do for them. I promoted this 100%, and I'll continue to promote it 100%. I think we will see an increase. I wouldn't see why we wouldn't. We have beautiful facilities. Growing up as a young kid in this town, it was a dream to play at Trojan Stadium as a young athlete. As a young baseball player, it was a dream to play. It used to be Henniger Field. That's where the Trojans played. And I think that also added motivation as a young athlete. All the way through when we went to Faust. At Faust, you still knew you were one step closer to being a Trojan. I think this can open up that door where it kind of takes a little bit of that away. But that being said, my biggest worry as the athletic director, and it's not just with youth sports, this is a building and grounds policy. This is opening our buildings up to any group, not just sports. But our facilities, our wear and tear on our facilities I can't imagine it doesn't increase a little bit. And it just depends on how often we approve requests. So I think those are all things we have to keep in mind. Our youth sports are strong. Our organizations have a lot of kids in them. And I don't know that this policy would directly impact the number of kids participating. So I don't know if that's something that really will impact. These kids are already participating, and they have opportunities out there.
I think at this point it's also worth noting that the school district pays Green Township $22,000 a year for our high school baseball team to use Green Township baseball fields. We pay Guilford Township $20,000 a year to use the softball fields, and another $12,000 a year to use their tennis courts. So the school district is paying taxpayer money back to taxpayers in Green Township and Guilford Township. So there is an expectation that there be funds to support the upkeep and maintaining facilities that are already imposed upon our part of our PIAA mission driven sports. But again, we can take the policy back and see what happens. Although if there's not another policy meeting till December, I'll hand it off to Mr. Bigger.
It's going to be, it would be, we'll do a vote.
Yes.
And if it doesn't pass, then it goes back to policy committee, and the next policy committee meeting is TBD. Because we're not having one in November because of the upcoming change in board. So any other discussion, questions? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote please for the, hold on, I'm waiting for it to.
Dr. Dillard?
Yeah.
Can I ask for clarity? We're voting on it as is, or we're voting on it with category B to
Okay,
move
so
it?
Just so procedurally, first,
as
there's
is.
been no motion by anybody to amend the policy as listed. That was just discussion. Second, in speaking with solicitor here, Mr. Z, we can't amend a policy on the fly here, so it would have to go back to committee anyhow.
Are most of these youth organizations 501c3s?
The motion on the floor right now is for policy 707 as it's presented.
Mr. McGee's question, I don't know if
Maybe I missed the question,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
how many, are they all 501c3 organizations? I don't know the answer.
That's my understanding that they are.
Yeah, but yeah.
Sorry, Mr. McKee, I missed.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
misheard
I
what
just
you're-
was thinking of
Yeah.
that, you know, because not every organization is 501c3. I'm just saying by nature. I'm not saying these organizations. Just wondered how many of them, you know, really are 501c3, really does it, you know. So,
The 501c3 is important because it
Right.
means that just a little group of people just can't get together and say, hey, we want the fields, we're a youth organization. No, you gotta be this organized 501(c)(3) filed organization. It has a limiting factor on how many people can ask to use the facilities.
Is there any drawback for delaying this policy?
yeah.
I'll defer to administration, but I think we've heard the continued confusion of, on their part,
That's-
having asked for direction for several months from the board, and here we are. But Dr. Redding, anything
Yeah,
to add?
we were anticipating being able to inform people of the fee structure more than anything else.
And
But
so
the
if
fee
we
structure is-
approve it tonight, we can change it at some future date if we find that it is objectionable because of whatever the reason.
Could even change the, what would be voted on next is the fee schedule, because in some ways, that's what really is the larger concern. But yeah, it could be changed again, just brought back to policy committee or brought to the board and Cal and go through the two readings.
It seems as though we need to get a policy so that administration can be using a policy that we've approved. I think that we've batted around and so on. I think it's about time we make a decision.
I'd also like to add that didn't the majority of this spring from the football, the youth football, the Trojans? Am I correct in that? How this mainly got started, how this ball mainly got rolling. And from my understanding, I guess they only have several games left, 1 or 2 games left on their season. So I don't know so much. And I know we're just not just talking about the Trojans football, youth football program, but there are other, obviously 501c3 and athletic organizations out there. But with that being said, if we're able to, I'm in agreement with Ms. Gogler here, get something on the books, and if we need to come back and correct or move in a different direction. That's it.
But a policy, the fee is hooked to the policy. So
Right.
having a policy without an approved fee schedule, it's, I don't know, cake without icing.
Other discussion? Go ahead, Dr. Redding.
Yeah. It's frustrating, it's frustrating having worked through this, to be at this point of the conversation where we're being thrust back into an area where we're not able to make good decisions and protect the assets of the district. I know we have, as a district team, have made arrangements for special use with, I'll use the example of the Trojan football team this year. They came back and asked for us to give them another date so they could host the playoffs. The athletic office and the business office calculated that for the day use, it was going to be about $700. They had no concerns about paying that rate because their gate take was probably going to be around $10,000. Facts. I don't see this as a a way of limiting student participation in youth programs.
Well, I think that both of the administrators who have been actively involved in this, Matt Varner and Sean Kemple, both have experience with youth sports, and I can't imagine that they would have suggested something that they felt was going to be damaging to youth sports. And there's a point at which I think we need to take the advice of people who are closer to the problem or the situation. And in this case, I think that Mr. Varner and Mr. Kemple's input needs to be honored in some respect.
I'd like to just add that I respect everybody's work in this. I really do. But my heart will not let me put those fees on the backs of parents and kids. And I want to encourage youth sports, and I think it's vitally important that we do. It's okay that everybody has a different philosophy on whether we should charge them for wear and tear or whether we shouldn't, but I think it's important. I was even thinking today, you know, they start music in 4th grade. The district helps with instruments, pays for music lessons. We go after that area, we help kids, and here we are with youth sports and we want to charge them. So I've gone over it 10 times in my head, and whatever the board goes with, I will support, but I will not put it on the parents. You know, some parents have to buy 3 pairs of shoes for their kids just to participate in a basketball. And it's just not football. Now we're going into basketball. Well, who gets in there? Who's allowed to be there? Who's going to be under the boosters so they don't have to pay the fees? I mean, it's just not good. So that's why I've had to say to myself, I have to vote against this.
But to be clear, music programs are not pulling in 10,000 on any of their event. Like it is a little different.
Well, let me tell you, do you think the wrestlers, all the other sports are pulling in $10,000? There was a group that met with 2 people. There are other groups. I'm talking about the other groups. It seems like we want to target that football group, but let's think about the other groups, the wrestlers, the basketball players, the other sports that are going on. They don't have that kind of money. So we got to think about them and stop targeting this football group that goes out and collects money trying to keep this thing afloat. And they're already being charged this fall for usage.
I have no idea right now what the wrestling youth programs do, but when my children were in youth wrestling, they had tournaments that they made money on tournaments. Is that, I like to say, I don't know if that's still the case or not. That's been a while ago.
Okay, so we had a point we should, ready to vote?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again, consistency, and I'll be a little more specific. So if the boosters hold a tournament, there's no fee. If the middle school basketball group hold a tournament, there's a fee. What is the difference? There's always the ability by the policy to say, no, it's just not available. But again, what is the difference? And why do we segregate these groups?
I think it's a starting point. So, all right, can we vote? So we can, I feel like our discussion's going in circles. So.
Yeah.
Any objections to voting? Okay, call the vote, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Diller?
No.
Mr. Fanouken?
No.
Mrs. Gogler?
Yes.
Mr. Leonards?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Norcross?
No.
Mr. Raber?
Yes.
Dr. Schur?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-3.
7.02, we have a motion to adopt the final version of the fee schedule associated with policy 707.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank Thank you. I'll ask my question this way. Is there any discussion on the fee schedule that's not already been somewhat discussed in parallel with 701?
I would just like to add that since this passed, I really believe we need to have a report to the board in like June of how things are going, who's being charged, who's being denied, and because in this whole decision-making process, we don't have the data, the information on all the different groups because we haven't been charging consistently. Some groups have paid nothing, some have paid some. We don't have the data to even look at and see who is applying and who's not. So I would really like that the board have that information so we can see if it in fact is working or it isn't working. And it can't be said, well, we don't have the information. We need to start with getting the information together and so that we can all look at it and have it reviewed so that we have the consistency and then we don't have as much turmoil in the community over who's paying, who's not paying, and who gets it and who doesn't, and who's under the boosters and who's not under the boosters. Because there are groups that it's been said to me, well, if I want to put together a basketball group, well, I'll just come in under the boosters, then I don't have to pay. Well, that's an issue. So if we could have a report in June, I would love to see that information.
I agree with, go ahead.
Good, Dr. Raver.
Yep, absolutely.
Dr. Redding. Mr. Raver.
Very doable. And you hit the nail on the head. To this point, we weren't collecting fees. There was no report. And I think after that, you will have that information.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Diller. I'm curious to know, is there anything additional that the administration needs to add in terms of tracking? Like one question I have, you mentioned $10,000, they're going to pay $700. Do we ever get that information when an outside group collects money for tickets? Do we know how much they pull in? And is there a way that we could have a pulse on that? Because that would probably help us to make a decision. But it's an outside group, so I don't know how much control we have over what they report to us, but
Yeah, I don't know that we would have any way of, I don't know what way we would do that. We don't staff those events because those are
Sure.
outside groups staffing them, so their ticket takers are doing that rather than ours. And that's another piece in the current policy and the fee schedule. There are fees or recommendations for if we have an announcer or if our scoreboard is used or if our concession stands are used, and that's inside and outside. We don't have a bank of people to work these things for outside events, which then puts our technology in the hands of outside groups. So, yeah, but as far as gathering that data, I mean, I don't know, I guess we'd have to look at some solutions to that, but no, there's no current tracking. Right now, we have the system where people can register, it's called FMX, which I'm sure, at the end of a year, we could pull data from that and see, how many outside groups did rentals, how often, things like that.
So
I haven't done it myself, but I'm sure that system could probably do something like that.
I think as a board, if we have specific things that we want the administration to be tracking, we owe it to them to make that clear.
Good. Yep.
So that we're better positioned the next time we have this discussion.
Good. Yeah, good point. And then obviously if there's a request and the data just isn't available, then it would be able to address it up front as opposed to having that discussion in June. But I like having a report out in June because that informs the board then on what's the appropriate changes to the fee schedule. You might say it needs to be lowered. It might be, no, it's not covering costs or whatever, but it certainly would be important to be able to maintain the schedule.
The one other thing that I'd like to suggest too is that there be a listing of how the FMX works, because you have people entering into that and from all the different buildings, and there seems to be so many hands into that system that it makes it difficult on who's getting what and so forth. So I think that procedurally, there needs to, the system itself needs looked at so that, you know, you don't have a teacher putting in for this or a coach putting in for that, and who knows who, and who goes to the secretary and who doesn't, and who goes to the FMX, and if we could get all that cleared up, I think that would really help the whole process as well.
One question, I just want to make sure that I understood correctly, because I remember back in when we were talking about the fee schedule in the policy committee, probably August, there was a comment made that, well, sometimes employees can get it for free and other, et cetera. With this schedule, those waivers don't exist, right?
Right, and the coaching camps are in category B, so there are fees associated with those based on the parameters. And there's also in this policy, even a category A group, that if there's overtime custodial fees or maintenance fees where those people are working outside of what we normally would have, even a category A group would have to pay those extra fees.
All right.
This is quite a project, but if the board had a better pulse on what our true cost is, that would, or at least at the administrative level, you know, to know, for a custodian, this is the highest paid custodian right now, this is the lowest paid, and here's the average rate that we're paying.
We actually have that.
Okay.
Salary and benefits could range between $27.76 to $62.90.
So we had that for custodian last time.
Which employee is the custodian that's working that event?
So I think we had that for custodian, but many of these other costs are a lot less clear, right? We don't, and some of this I think would be quite hard to calculate, but.
I think during the discussions with at the various times it came to policy committee, the desire was to come up with something that was reasonable, that offset costs, but it didn't cover all costs, you know, at least as an entry, sticking our foot in the water. But again, this should be revisited and altered as appropriate in next year. Yeah, and Mr. Raber, to your point there about the cost, you know, some of these other ones, you know, is $25 an hour. I think it depends on who, and you know, so part of it also is just saying, all right, where does this number seem to fit on the overall range, or is it within what would be an acceptable or anticipated range? Okay. Any other discussion on 702?
Just a question, consumable supplies, this one just hit me. The fees per use are as follows. So is a use one
Day.
tournament, one day, regardless of how many events happen in that day? So it's a per day? Yeah. Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Fanouken?
No.
Mrs. Gogler?
Yes.
Mr. Leonards?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Norcross?
No.
Mr. Raber?
Yes.
Dr. Scher?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Diller?
No.
Motion passes 6-3.
Okay, and Mr. Kimball, I do apologize that you, for what you had said about how you had felt from some of the conversations, and don't think, well, I don't know the specifics, but apologies that you have that.
I just wanted to make sure that the board understood that that's the furthest thing from my intention when it comes to any sports, let alone youth sports.
I think if the board had concerns about that, then we wouldn't have put you in that role. So we think we're a great fit and still are, so thank you. All right, 8.01, may I have a motion to approve the software through Lincoln Intermediate and transfer the money from the budget reserve for year one.
Move to approve.
Thank you, and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Okay, hearing no discussion on this, unless you're gonna say I can't, we'll do a verbal. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, 801 passes. We have a motion for 802, the agreement to have an unpaid internship for a school psychologist from October 2023 through the end of the school year.
It's free, move to approve.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving 802 as motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 802 passes. Now may I have a motion to purchase more of the open court reading sound cards for the intervention teachers' use.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any questions on this? Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion as read, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, sound card purchase is approved. 901, we have a motion to approve the reinstatement of a 10th grade student.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, and we, given that this is a confidential student matter, we had opportunity to pose any questions in the executive session right before we came down. So unless there's any general questions on this, I'll pause. Okay, all those in favor of reinstating the 10th grade student as presented, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, the student is reinstated. And 902, we have a motion to approve the 11th grade exchange student to attend CASHES starting in mid-October.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Okay.
This is exciting. I'll say that. I think it's great when we have exchange students here. I know there were a lot of students that got to interact with the students from Germany that were here recently, and I think this is a real positive for the students at CASHES.
Agree. All right. All in favor, say, of 902, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 902 passes. We have a motion to approve the personnel actions as presented. You get extra credit if you motion for it.
Move to
because-
approve.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to be handing out stickers later on, stars. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any questions about personnel items? Okay. All in favor of approving the personnel actions as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Personnel actions are approved. Committee reports. I think this time we start at the left end of the table. Mr. Raber?
No report. I'll let Dr. Diller handle.
Okay.
Just to highlight from the minutes that were provided from one of our last meetings is the establishment, hoping to have the establishment of STEM clubs at our elementary schools at some point this year, which is a wonderful, positive situation for students. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Walker.
Transportation meeting,
I have it on mine.
Monday, October 16th, 10 o'clock.
Okay. Ms. Gallagher.
I'm going to mention two committee meetings that I went to this month. The Joint Operating Committee of the Franklin County Career and Technology Center met on September 28th. One of the highlights for me was the information that was shared related to the individualized professional development initiatives that are in their second year at the Career Center. There's a published report in the Techniques magazine that provides information about this forward-thinking approach to professional development, and I'd particularly like to commend the efforts of Terry Miller and Leslie Schumann, who have been behind this initiative, and they've been assisting the faculty in personalizing the goals and strategies to improve the individual instructor's job performance. An increase in the number of industry certifications available to the career tech students is just one of the outcomes of this effort. The second meeting that I wanted to mention that I attended was the Parent Advisory Group meeting. I was impressed with the active participation of approximately 10 representatives of elementary and secondary schools in the district. Dr. Redding reviewed the highlights and lowlights of the school climate survey with clear data from the survey, and he didn't cherry-pick data to promote an agenda. The administrative staff and board members present at that meeting listened to the concerns expressed by the participants, and the participants projected a level of awareness of the challenges facing the district. The last thing I wanted to speak of has to do with the role of the board as the governing body rather than being responsible for the day-to-day operation of the district, and that needs to be more clearly understood, I think, by everyone. Setting district goals and board goals and assuring that the policies of the district support those goals, as well as developing a budget that facilitates the implementation of the district goals, is the primary responsibility of the board. I was surprised when I was speaking to someone recently and they had never heard of the term, the Team of 10. And this is again something that, if people aren't familiar with it, should be understood. The board has a non-voting member in the superintendent, and the individual board member doesn't act independent of the entire board. The current workshops that we're having with Dr. Sherry Smith are assisting the board in clarifying the roles and responsibilities of board members. Education is essential for more than our students. Improved communication skills are also invaluable to anyone who interacts in society.
Thank you. Mr. Norcross.
Mrs. Gogler says it best about the JOC meeting, the article in the Techniques magazine. Just another example of how that staff just continues to lead the pack at Career Tech Center.
You already had your term, right? Yes. Okay. Since you're the 10th, I want to make sure.
I used my token already.
Okay. Yeah, and Mrs. Gallagher, what you had said about the board goals, we did have one in September. We had one in, I think it's to the 23rd. And then we, with the current board, and then as November is going to be post-election, individuals that have won the general election will be joining us then. Obviously that date hasn't been picked yet, but we'll be getting that teed up, and then we can start the transition. So we'll be able to take the goal discussion that Mrs. Gallagher mentioned, start it now, obviously not finish it, but get the trajectory and the momentum going. It's also, Mr. Bigger has been involved with these, so we're going to have that transition as well. So very excited about that. And I was also, Dr. Diller, mentioned about the STEM. It was really neat to be able to go and see, when I was at the LIU, one of the reports there was about STEM and how they have a STEM learning library, lending library, excuse me. And then to circle back in our prior discussion on this, that we're utilizing that. So it's great to see when things do connect. And we also, LIU also has, I don't know if they're piloting, but it's using VR, the VR headsets, and be able to leverage software that people can get kind of, quote, hands-on experience in technical areas that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Personally, I'm not quite there yet, but I think it's just, I love the idea. Mr. Leonard's in the seat instead of on the phone.
What's that?
Said it's great to have you in the seat instead of on the phone.
It's great to be back here. Yes, in person, I mean, you know, instead of virtually. The only thing I have is our next Finance Committee meeting is this Thursday, October 12th, 6 p.m. Thank you.
Mr. McKee?
Yes, we had a policy committee meeting on October the 5th. Great going through some of the policies and that. The next meeting will not be till January after we reorganize as a board.
Mr. Finucane?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. For the good of the order. All right. 12:01, members of the audience invited to comment on non-agenda items. Remember the disclaimer, so to speak, that I read before. And I see, okay, oops, I only see 2. All right, so Penny Weiss. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, you did say maybe. Okay. Sorry. Yep, I see that now. All right, so let me know. And then Becky Grosskreutz.
Okay, so good evening, board members. I'm speaking tonight per policy 903, number 3, representing a group in the community. Tonight, I'm representing many concerned parents and grandparents in this district who, like you, want what's best for children. I'll be discussing and sharing some very sensitive and graphic information that's been found in the high school library. And I ask that if there are any children listening, or anyone that doesn't want to be in the audience to listen, that they are careful of that. And I will say that, yes, this is a negative, but that's why there is a school board, and this is a valid concern, and honestly, it's quite concerning once you hear some of this. And hopefully you'll take this and turn it into a positive to make the district even better. So I'll start by saying lots of people like to claim that people are trying to ban books, but there's really a difference between banning and what's age appropriate for public schools. Parents today aren't challenging books like To Kill a Mockingbird, like what you hear people say, or Harry Potter. Instead, today, parents are concerned about sexually explicit books made easily accessible to children in a public school setting without their knowledge. If parents want their children to read the explicit books, they can easily be picked up at a public library or Amazon, which begs the question, why are people even claiming these books are banned? It seems that there have been many reasons given as to why these sexually explicit books are in the high school, even though most of the books don't seem to be found in any other school in Franklin County. One excuse given was that the book reviews were good, and that's what the librarians look for. It was shared how one particular book in question was said to be filled with inventiveness, humor, and heart, and is good for a reluctant male teen. So I'm going to read part of this book and see what you think, if it's appropriate to be in a high school. And I again want to warn parents that if you have a child nearby, that you may not want them to listen. And this is what's in the book.
And ma'am, this is on YouTube.
Yes,
Okay.
I know. And that's why I gave the warning. And again, this is in the public school library, so again, if it can't be heard, why is it in the library for children? And this is difficult to read. Are you going to eat her pussy? Yes, Earl, I'm going to eat her pussy. Do you even know how to eat pussy? Not really. Papa Gaines never sat you down and said, son, one day you're gonna have to eat the pussy. No, he did not teach me that, but he taught me how to eat a butthole. God bless that man. I would teach you some pussy eating technique, but it's a little complicated. Son, I don't have time for that. I got like 20 pussies over here I need to eat. I'm on a pussy deadline. I got 20 vaginas all lined up in a row.
Ma'am, I think the audience gets the point. I don't know
Okay.
that, I mean, it's your public.
Well, I'm
comment.
done with that part of it. And again, this is what's available to kids in the school. There are 57 asses in the book, 94 fucks, 3 faggots, 27 piss, and it goes on and on. I could read a whole host of other books that are in the library available for kids, and they've been said that, well, they don't have to read them, they can choose them. Well, again, if they choose them, the parents wouldn't even have any knowledge of this. I could read another book that's one of the most controversial in the country right now that is in the high school, and there are images of oral sex with a strap-on. One part even says, did it ever occur to you to not put something in your vagina, not even a finger, so you've never tasted yourself? And the images have stuff on her finger with the label vagina slime. This is what kids have access to. And if they choose it, parents don't know about it. I could continue sharing again and again from other books that have been found. just like, actually, they're even worse than what I just read. It's quite concerning that there are adults who are protecting, or should be protecting, children from this in a school setting. But they are the ones ordering and shelving these types of books and then saying there's nothing that can be done about it. Parents entrust their minor children, and any children in high school, even under 18, are considered minor. And I urge you as a school board to use your legal authority, which you do have, and power to protect children from this type of explicit material. These are the types of books that parents are concerned about. So when you hear the banned books, it's quite different than what they're making it out to be on the news. And I just want to say, it's hard to know what's out there, but now you do. When you know better, you do better. And I'd like to present you with some information and resources that will help you with a possible solution when it comes to policy of other places in Pennsylvania and across the country that have written these policies. They've been enacted, they're using them. One is in Central Bucks, Pennsylvania. And they go through different ways to keep these types of books out of the classroom. So I'm going to pass those out, and I hope you'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
There's only 10.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Ms. Weiss, yes, or, okay. Tony Weiss. Yep.
Okay, I think it's on.
There you go. Yep.
Yes, Tony Wise, taxpayer parent. I have spoken many times here at the board meetings the last few years, mainly on choice. And it is important as a parent to be heard. And I do respect everybody here on this board and the position and the role that you play. It's very time consuming and there's a lot to discuss. Miss Becky here, she is a friend of mine. It is concerning to hear her say that these books are in our library. I have 2 middle school children, 6th grader and an 8th grader. My daughter does not go to this district. She prefers a private school. And I know these books are not there. But it's important to, as a parent and a citizen, to be heard. And they may sound negative at times, but I'm a firm believer in speaking and having a choice and a right to say. That it may sound negative to some, but it can be a positive. It's heard and approached in a positive way, because it's important. So that's concerning to know that these types of books are in the library. Yeah, I wouldn't want my kids to read these books, and they probably would want to check them out and not tell me. Just as a parent, there's a lot of things, you know, as children, they try to see what they can get by as parents. But it's concerning, and I just appreciate her speaking on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else that's indicated to speak. Okay. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're at 13:01. Meeting, regular board meeting is adjourned. I'll pause because we usually have a little bit of an exodus. And we'll jump on the committee of the whole in a minute. We have everybody back. So as our normal rules of engagement, so to speak, we'll go down each item, and if I don't hear any objections or comments to the contrary, I'll go on a consent agenda for the meeting on the 24th. So 101, extended district liability insurance coverage. Mrs. Stauffer, Mrs. Stein.
Yes, this is an annual item that we bring forward. We have the ability to offer an extension of our liability insurance protection to board-sanctioned groups, and the list is attached, and this is at no additional cost to the district.
All right, any questions on 101, the insurance? Does this have the fee schedule that we just covered, so that, does that match up in any way with the categories, category A that we just talked about?
Most of these are groups that are associated, well, all of these groups are associated with the district, so you're seeing the booster clubs. I believe the foundation is on here. Most of them are booster clubs.
Okay. Right. So, go ahead.
These are groups that would be under category A and not be charged for using facilities. So this could be the guide for who gets charged and who doesn't. Are we taking on the liability associated with these groups? I had never seen this extensive listing before, but it might be useful in helping this guy.
Okay. I just connected those dots as I was talking, so otherwise I didn't mean to throw it out, throw it upon you here, but to have a look. All right, so consent agenda then. 102, disposal of district property.
Yes, this is an information item. You can see that we have 3 different vehicles. One is a 1993 Ford van. Another one is a 1985 Chevy truck. And then we also have a 2014 bus that has an engine failure. All of these vehicles, the cost of repair exceeds their value, so we're going to move to dispose of those through scrap.
Did we just get a lemon on the bus? I mean, that seems 10 years in, or is there more to the story there?
I can't answer that, Mr. Raber. I don't know if Ms. Stein has any more information.
Actually, this is one of the terrible twins that we did purchase brand new in 2014. And we did bring this item, I think, to the board, but we actually had this disposal for them now, so we're bringing it back. But the engine, it needs a full replacement, and with the labor cost added to this, and with the age of the bus, it's out of warranty. Our mechanic has scrapped pretty much everything else he can remove off of that bus before we take it for scrap. But it must have been a lemon.
What, from one of the transportation meetings, was that one of the years, was there a year or two, maybe I'm misremembering, certain buses that they had made that was kind of, I don't know, not necessarily or faulty or what have you?
I can't speak for that entire year of 2014 International bus, you know, that line of bus, but I know the 2 that we had did have significant issues.
Yeah.
The other one, not to this extent. I hope it doesn't.
I can speak from Cumberland Valley Christian School, yes. We had the same problems with those years. Yes.
I thought that was a conversation that we had at the transportation meeting. That's why I brought that up.
It was a bad year for International.
Sorry, I was wrestling with the mic. The Chevy truck, now, does that have any fuzzy dice hanging from the mirror?
85. Maybe.
Or is it like carpeted in the inside?
Not to my knowledge, but I certainly could check and get you an answer on that.
Well, if it's going to be up for sale, I probably has.
Mark, it's actually sitting back by the paper shed, and it's an old bread truck is what it is.
So for those still on YouTube watching in, it's by the paper shed. If you want to do a drive-by and check it out before it goes on sale, there it is. Okay, we'll put it on the consent agenda. 103, the budget transfer.
Yes, this is the technology department requesting a budget transfer for the new infrastructure lease, which reflects extra equipment needed for that lease. So that is why they're requesting $7,500 to be transferred within their budget.
They don't have the funds to cover it in their existing budget?
It is within their budget. It's just a change of
Oh, it's just,
interfunction, yes.
Okay, consent agenda, 104, Harrisburg. and
If
then
I
just
may do
roll on.
104 and 105 together,
Yep,
they're
please.
both agreements for dual enrollment. We have received a grant through the state for dual enrollment of $75,000, and we are receiving affiliation agreements with different universities, and these are two of them.
I might suggest for future reference that since these are agreements that are not obligating the district for any cost, that the superintendent have authority to sign them without board and attorney review. Just a point of, and I don't.
Point of procedural, yeah.
Yeah, just for future reference. They're not obligating the district to.
Good point.
To expend any funds.
We'll put that on the parking lot for Mr. Bigger and the next board.
Would that then be an informational
Oh, yeah.
topic then for the board, so
Yes.
that they would know that it was happening?
Right.
Well, unless somebody feels otherwise, I would say, since this is just a cow, we don't need to put it on the consent, on the agenda, then we can just let it go ahead and get executed.
Bill?
You can do that, yep.
So
Okay.
it would be the two that are here.
Yeah, so we can, you guys can go ahead and do it, and just put it on the agenda next time as an information item, and done.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Long, you got the neck, well, you got quite the role here, so just keep on going.
Okay. 106 is the Act 80 day for CMS. When we adjusted the school calendar, Bobby counted up the days for different groups. For the group that is in the CMS that is going to the Career Center for the second semester, they will be short one day, so we would like to do an Act 80 day. So those students have 90 days in the first semester and also the 90 days in the second semester to equal 180.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
What happens to a school district that ends the year one day short?
So our school district has Act 80 days built into our school calendar. So if we were to end early, we would apply for an Act 80 day with the state. Now, I don't know if that's how every school district does it, but
Well,
I'm assuming.
The long answer, if you don't, the ADM that's calculated for reimbursement is based on 180 days of instruction. The Act 80 law allows you to get credit for 180 days even if you only have kids in session for whatever number. So you want to do everything you can to document 180 days, whether they're all in person or some of them are Act 80. But it works its way into the calculation for the district reimbursement on average daily membership.
And that came about because the days that we missed were 3. There was only 1 in the first semester where there were 2 in the second semester. So that we were making up. So we needed this day for those Career Center students.
Other questions on 106?
107 is an early graduation. This is an 11th grade student. The student will have 6 credits to graduate this year, and they are on track to do that. All the other items are taken care of as far as the graduation. They just need to pass the classes. 108 to 113 are unique field trips for the NJROTC. Commander Apgar requested that he could put all his trips on, and some of these trips are just in case they make the regional finals and the national finals. So he said, I would love to have him just approved, that way we can just continue on. And each one of these trips are up for reimbursement as well from the Navy.
I appreciate being proactive and optimistic.
He's very optimistic.
Yep. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question about early graduation. Do students at the Career Center, Career Magnet School know about early graduation? The reason I'm asking, I just had a parent telling me about something, and I said, well, you know, I hear about early graduation. Sounds like your daughter would be potentially involved in that, and she didn't seem to, you know, I don't understand how some students get early graduation, I guess, and I couldn't respond to the questions in an intelligent fashion.
Sure. The counselors are usually the ones that are discussing that with the students when they look at their transcript with them and go over their course schedule. Many of the students that do graduate early take advantage of the block schedule, where you can get 8 credits very easy each year. So within 3 years, you can get 23 credits, actually 24. So if they do that starting in 9th grade and move forward, they have every chance to be graduating early. Some parents decline on that, and I know that some people are missed as well because the student wants to stay in school for the senior year. But they should be, I know when I was there, I promoted it because we had quite a few that graduated early because I wanted them to be able to do early college, many of them, or some of them are getting jobs right out of, you know, at 11th grade. When they graduated, they had a job already, so.
Yeah, this was a job situation, need to work type of situation, and as I say, it just sounded as though there was not an awareness of that in the situation.
Sure. I mean, if you want to share the name with me afterwards, I can check in on that tomorrow.
Are the students able to not go if they don't want to go?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, they have, their parents have to sign and they have to agree to it as well to graduate early. We want to make sure that they have something that they're doing. I really didn't like it when I was principal there, then someone wanted to just graduate early and go out and just, as everyone says, play video games for a year. But we wanted to make sure that they had some plan for what their future was going. 114, that's the creation of STEM clubs in all the elementary buildings. This is going to be the, oh, sorry, my computer just, all right, there we go. We're looking at 17 total stipend positions throughout the elementaries. Due to, we have four buildings that are large, and we feel that they will require two advisors for those large buildings. And then in our plan that we had that we presented quite a while ago when we were buying the Legos and the Connects, we had a coordinator for all 13. That way someone would be able to coordinate activities, coordinate competitions and things like that for them, and that would just be a regular $573 stipend as well, like the other ones, but they would be talking to all the advisors. Currently, we have 4 schools that are ready to go, and there's others that are starting since we started talking about this. They're asking their people who wants to be involved. They're getting very excited. I can tell you that the Legos and the Connects have really made a difference in the schools. The students just can't wait to get to the media centers to be creative and really put their minds to work in different methods. We're also using a lending library through the LIU. And they have all kinds of things like Sphero robots and other items that we can rent, or not rent, but get in from that lending library, and then we turn it in the next month. So it takes a little planning as well. I can tell you Falling Spring is a real example. She has around 40 students prepared this year so far, and she breaks them up between the smaller grades and the upper grades because she wants to give them time. So she is a real good example of how a STEM club can work.
Okay, I like it. Good.
I'm supportive. I was thinking though, if you ended up with like South Hamilton with a really big club and Hamilton Heights with a really small club, maybe we want the second one actually at the school that has the bigger club, because I'm just thinking that the larger schools they might not necessarily end up with the larger clubs. So I'd be supportive of using the additional 4 wherever the need is the greatest.
Understand that, and I can say if only when their population gets over a certain amount are we going to implement the second one. We're not going to start off with 2.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll put that on consent agenda next time. And 1:15, Mr. Whitman.
Yes, this is a reoccurring agreement with the juvenile probation program for 2 probation officers, one that works with our 2 middle schools and one that works with our high schools. It's been going on for a very long time. We have a very good relationship with our probation officers.
Any questions on that? Okay. I wanted to just go back real quick on kind of 2 items. First one, or cover 2 items. The first one is on 104 and 105. While we did, it's going to be an informational item. These are with Harrisburg University and Wilson College. We need to make sure, and maybe Dr. Redding, either I do that in the superintendent, you do it in yours, or I'll do it in mine. But we want to call out how these are dual opportunities for kids to get credits, and just kind of promote that. You'll probably remember, and I won't.
I'm writing it down, so more likely I'll see.
Yeah, because sometimes the information items just are way down at the bottom and then just kind of glow over. I think this is one that we should do a call out of that. And for the overall awareness of, for the board here, we had Mr. McKee, I don't think you mentioned it at in the committee report. It just hit me. We reviewed a policy, I think it's the bullying policy, and had some really good conversation. But the key point that I want to make is that Chief Carter explained some aspects about it, and how they, being everybody here, implements it, how we monitor for it, and all of that kind of stuff. And although there's not going to be any changes to that policy, it's going to come for an informational awareness that it's going to just be kind of renewed or whatever. We do want to see it on the agenda so that Chief Carter can talk to us, kind of educate us and the public on what is the real definition of bullying. It's just that Dr. Redding was mean to me. That doesn't rise to that level. It doesn't mean that it should be ignored, but there is a definition of bullying, and what Chief Carter said was just very informative, and I wanted to make sure that also is covered during the regular board meeting, because as we see, at the CAL, it's just people don't hang around. So that's the other item. And Mr. Z, I leaned over and said the topic that was brought up in public comment, he'll grab some information for us of where other districts have covered, or at least started to address that or whatever, and just share some information for our awareness. Any other questions or topics before we adjourn and go back to brief executive session? Okay, it's a wrap. Thanks, everyone. Next time, we'll be over at the back at the admin building.